horse drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Felsted in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Hello and welcome. Time of the week again. Yep, it's Sunday sermon. And joining me as always to chew the fat. And there's plenty of fat this week. It's myself, John, and Chris. Good afternoon, chaps.
Hello.
Evening, everyone.
Busy show. And it's always thanks to you. Many, many questions we get, and some really funny ones as well, which do help the entertainment value of listening to a not totally shit podcast. But before we get to those, let's do the review of the weekend. And we're just going to look at the French Derby, really, because it's a classic. We could look at the John O'Gorn. You'll get other podcasts doing that. And we'll look at the French Derby, and then we're going to come on to an interesting event that took place at Wexford this week. First and foremost, though, John, the French Classic, the Prix de Jockey Club.
It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? I mean, our colleague Jack has already been in touch, ranting and raving, saying it should not even be called a classic.
Well, yeah, it's a fair point.
I really do think that it's proper knackered, the race, going back to 10 furlongs as a fair test.
Did it used to be back in the day?
It was well now.
I don't think this 10 at Chantilly, it's such a struggle for the wide draws, isn't it?
And if they don't go any pace, I mean, the trouble in the straight is just off the graph. Run the same lot round the 1.5 mile course to thin them out a bit. You probably get a completely different result. I mean, it used to have big bearing on the arc, the French Derby. I think them days are absolutely finished. I don't think you can say, oh, well, he's won the French Derby, he's got to be an arc candidate. I don't think that's an automatic thing anymore. But, you know, they've decided that they want speed, they feel a need for speed.
Just like the 90s, John.
You know, Top Gun revisited, isn't it?
Or Top Gear, whichever ever.
Well, you need to be on Top Gear to appreciate this as a top race now, wouldn't you?
Right, going into the race itself then. So Camille Pizarro won the race thanks to a yawning gap left by compatriot Wayne Martin Lorden, who decided to let Ryan ride up his inside like a good little boy that he is. And that allowed Ryan, of course, to come through and beat Cauliflower, John, in the closing stages.
Yeah, cauliflower shaped well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I bet they were a bit changed off, though.
It did, of course, listeners. If you parted with a few shekels, you would have got mine and John's preview for the French Derby this morning. But sadly, we didn't manage to. We did say, though, didn't we? We disagreed with our Jack. We stood in for our Jack.
Yeah, we thought he'd get the trip.
Yeah, Jack was adamant he wouldn't. We said he would.
I thought he wouldn't get a run, rather stupidly, thinking that.
Thanks to Wayne Martin Lorden, he did.
Yeah. Lorden could have been listening to that podcast and just sat there and thought, fuck you, mate.
I know. I'm just hoping for our Patreon listeners, because obviously we'll come on to your choice in a second. Obviously, my choice was Trinity College, and if you did back it each way, you'll get paid, because I think most books did pay 4. Some paid 5, I think. I do think Trinity College, I think if it weren't for Beaumark sort of pestering him early on, I think he might have had a sort of a Mark Johnston Beverly kind of ride, John.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally think he's crying out for 12.
He was coming back a bit, weren't he, at the line?
I think a truly run 12 would be right up his alley, to be honest.
You even put in your notes earlier on this year, Queen's Vase type.
I think he'll stay all day,
I think he's a nice horse, you know. He's hardy, he's straightforward. He's not one of them that you have to, like a skitty thing, you have to settle and you have to do this, you have to do that.
No, nice looking horse as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to come from him. He's not going to be top class. He's certainly going to be capable. The
trouble all this is with these, if they don't think they're going to be absolute tip-top J1, they start fucking about with them, don't they? And he can make the run in the Irish Derby next time, you know. And
yeah, it's kind that you'd want with another trainer, really, because they'd campaign it properly and do, but like you said, they're bigger fish to fry.
If only he was with Ed Dunlop.
Yeah, he'd get it off 63 for a Yarmouth mile and 3.5 handicap, wouldn't he? So coming on to the also runs that I noticed, a few hard luck stories. I thought Sinileo ran well enough for an inexperienced horse. We talked about him physically.
He's coming back at him nicely after he had like his, well, you wouldn't call it a mental breakdown, I suppose, but he certainly lost his pitch and ran very, very green at the midpoint of the race. I thought he was coming back nicely in the straight. I thought that was a really good run for one that's had one run a fortnight ago.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, it's very difficult for us to win French derbies on the back of just one start. King of Cities.
About power I expected from the Hannon situation, really. I mean, in parts, I would have just liked to have seen him brought him back after that hard race at Newmarket in a softer race.
Yeah, we do think, me and John both think that the field and form is very strong. So don't write off King of Cities if Mr. Hannon can, of course, possibly place him correctly this summer, because there is a nice horse there in King of Cities. So I'm confident that field and form is strong. Time was strong. So come on to your selection. Curragh Camp, John, he was involved in quite a bit of scrimmaging and messing around.
Yeah, I mean, he's ended up 3 horses behind Ryan on the fence out the 5 box. He's turned into the straight in about 18th.
Yeah.
And then he's finally got some racing round, and he's just started his run, and then the jockey said, pull him up.
In some ways, I don't think that's a bad idea sometimes, because...
Well, he certainly wasn't going to be an eye catcher, was he? Let's all get on this next time, because, I mean, he was...
Pasquier's probably got off and said afterwards, look, I could have beat him up and there was just no point from the position he found himself in, but I'd have just said, well, you put yourself there.
Yeah.
So Curragh Camp, of course, owned by Robert
Mm.
Robert Ng. Is that it? Is that how you do it, John?
Well, if I've worked this out right. If you say ping,
Yeah.
then drop the pit.
So we lose the pit. So it's Robert Ng.
That's him.
I think it's Robert New, isn't it? I think NG is new. I've read somewhere. I don't know if that's right. Yeah, I think so, but yeah, not sure. Perhaps some of our
someone else has told me, and I forgot who it was. There's a long time between gins, but someone said it's like Robert Ngo.
Okay, I mean that could be equally plausible.
Yeah, Robert Ngo.
Okay.
Will Ho, if you're listening, you'll know this surely. Yeah. He's one of our. He even sits with us at York, and not many people do that or choose to do that. So, Will Ho, drop me an email. What is it that? That's the French derby covered.
It certainly stops the stewards having him in, doesn't it?
Yeah, John, Camille Pissarro is yours now. You've been given a leg in it, and they've said to you, where are you going next?
Sell.
Selling it.
Sell. Sell. Immediately. I want it out. Yeah, go on.
I don't know. You're a straight answer on that one.
Yeah.
I'll just answer it quick. I mean, I think you're forced to go Eclipse, really. I don't think there's anything else suitable for a French derby winner on these shores.
Because let's be right here, the Eclipse has sort of lost its lustre, hasn't it? Like in recent times, that had been getting 3, 4, 5 runners.
He's getting a bit iffy. It is a logical target for a Frog Derby winner now.
Right, okay. We'll move on from French Derby to Wexford, of all places. Now, if you've been living under a rock this week, which is perfectly acceptable to do, especially in these dark times that racing.
I know, won't be long before we're all living under the
I'm going to say we're going to be living like ogres in forests, beating off berries, John.
I've got my smoothie machine, so I'm not worried about the berries. I'll just blend them up.
Exactly.
Get me 5 a day.
That's it, 5 a day. Yeah. Smoothies. That's the way forward, folks. You can stick all sorts in them: celery, broccoli, green shit, kale, blueberries, strawberries, bananas. Just mash it all in, and then have see what it tastes like. That's the future. It's like Peter Kay said the future is garlic bread. John says the future is, of course, smoothies. The Wexford Claiming Hurdle at 4:55 p.m. on Wednesday, the 28th of May, was a bone of contention because Beacon Edge was very, very heavily backed from a price 8 to 13 into 1 to 3. The only conceivable danger, according to the ratings and everything else, Redwood Queen, trained by Charles Burns and ridden by his son Philip Burns. That opened up at 13 to 8 in the morning. Some punters had took 13 to 8 when they were placing the bets in the morning, I noticed online. And it started at 13 to 2. All well and good. You know, a Burns drifter, we've seen it before. We've seen it a million times before. Nothing new to see here, is the kids? Except for the finish. Philip Burns appeared to be full of running, going well, in front, got Beacon Edge in trouble, and then came the, I won't say the inevitable, then came the exit at the last from an unseat, and I described it at the time as an extremely soft unseat. So I'd like to get my two counterparts here, John and Chris, for their views. Chris, you must have seen the replays on this. What is your expert? Never ridden a horse.
No, never ridden one in anger. I mean, look, we have to be extremely careful about what we say, and I'm expecting people are going to say that, oh yeah, it definitely fell off. The reality is you've got to look at it in context, haven't you? This is from a yard which, by their own admission, is not averse to having a touch. Okay, they've had sort of skirmishes with authority in the past, betting related, and you know whether you think the fall was deliberate or was just an unhappy or happy coincidence, you have to look at it in the context of the fact that the horse drifted like the Kontiki, right? So somebody expected that horse not to win. So, and I hear what people like Mick Fitzgerald say and George Baker, etc. The reality is, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, chances are it's probably a duck. Now, I think the IHRB are looking into it, but I mean, it didn't look good, did it? And I think at a time when racing's integrity is under the spotlight, that's as bad as you'll see. Now, whether or not they conclude there's any wrongdoing, God only knows. But I rather doubt that they will. I'm not convinced that all of their dough is always played domestically or put in. I understand that a lot of their bets are placed elsewhere in other jurisdictions, but I think what you might find is that some of it leaked back. So it could be some interesting times ahead for them. But look, the bottom line is people saying, "Oh, why would a jockey fall off?" Well, frankly, if there's a lot of money involved, thing about money, bud, is it makes you do things you don't want to do. So I think it was as bad as you'll ever see, frankly. But whether or not that's just our optics or whether that's reality, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, John.
Well, I think the Mick Fitzgerald defence of the ride, where he pointed out that Wexford is actually one of the most difficult hurdles tracks in the Northern Hemisphere. And despite appearances on the television, the hurdles are actually 11'6". I still thought this was more of a dismount than a soft unseat. I thought you were being very kind there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a good point.
One thing I would say, if that lad's fallen off, I think he needs his licence taken away for his own good, because he should not be riding in professional races, because he's a danger to himself and he's a danger to other people.
He's a good jockey otherwise. Fun, when the money's down, he's as good as as good as there is.
Yeah, but if they can know that, they're dangerous. And in these days of health and safety, I think it'd be for his own benefit if they told him to piss off and be an assistant trainer somewhere.
You make some very salient point. What I want to touch on here is I watched an interview, and this was very refreshing on ITV Racing of all places. It totally took me aback. Matt Chapman, Meg Nichols, and Mick Fitzgerald. Two of the three came out with extreme, what's the word? I was really buoyed by the honesty of Chapman and Nichols.
Yeah, I was.
Live on TV, that's as far as they could possibly go.
Yes, and to interrupt you, Lee, you're right. When people say, "Oh, they should have said," there are laws in place. You can't defame or slander people. Now, whatever your view may be, you have to couch it in very careful terms that you're not sort of accusing somebody. But what they said was it didn't look good, and I think that's as far as they could have gone. And fair play to them for saying that. I think
there's two people this week that didn't come out really looking great, and it's a regular sort of gripe on the show, well, for both of them, is Mick Fitzgerald and George Baker. George Baker was doing the racing TV studio at the time. John knows what's coming now. George, of course, said the horse basically show jumped and his backside kicked him out of the saddle. It's not what I saw, personally. Mick Fitz also defended him again in the ITV interview when he even put it back on Megan and said, "So you're saying he jumped then?" So Megan had to sort of say, "Well, I'm not saying he jumped, but it didn't look good, did it?" John, why do we have so many ex-jockeys that appear in punditry?
You tell me, because they're absolutely useless. Useless.
For example, Mick Fitzgerald, right? He was a top-class jockey, yeah? I like Mick Fitzgerald as a jockey.
Yeah.
I thought he was a great jockey. Some memorable rides at the festival for me going back in the day. You're not on there just to blow smoke up everyone. Surely you can offer an opinion. Ruby Walsh does. Ruby Walsh will sometimes come out and be pretty blatant. And
Mick Fitzgerald was doing some paddock assessments yesterday. It was an absolute joke. I mean, the Ed Walker winner at Haydock that won, he actually said that should be in a Western with a cowboy riding in it. That was his paddock assessment.
Favourite looked well though, John. That's what that's my note.
Obviously, we've no evidence to the contrary. But I've had rumours come in that some money filtered back to the exchange from South Africa and India, illegal books there. Again, I can't quantify that and say that is 100%, but that's the intel that I get. Whether you believe that, it's entirely up to you. It did, put it this way, it didn't look good. As Chris often says, the optics didn't look great.
Yeah, somebody knew, Lee. That's the point. Somebody knew. It wasn't as if, the horse was rock solid in the market, blah, 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 and, and tipped over at the last. That's fine. You could say, well, soft fall, blah, blah, blah. But somebody benefited from that. Somebody had advanced knowledge. And that's the troubling aspect. You can analyse the fall all you like. You can put it in slow motion, say, well, did the horse come out of his hands and all that sort of stuff. The fact that none of that matters. And I always say it's about, people that point out non-triers. Somebody knew that horse was not going to perform to its optimum ability, and that's all about the context, isn't it? That's what they've got to look at.
Yeah, and just to also clarify, the same intel has said that some Betfair accounts have been suspended on the back of this, which is also interesting. If Betfair, who remember signed that memorandum of understanding, of understanding to obviously for sports integrity, if they send the details to the IHRB, that will make things more interesting, given that also that Charles Burns, if you remember last time, when he was found guilty of malpractice, shall we say, to coin a phrase, they reported that he had relations with an Indian bookmaker who sent him sums of money. That's in the public domain. I'm not saying anything that's like, that's what was found in the report when Charles Burns was banned last time. There's the form's there. It's in the form book, and I'll leave everyone else to sort of...
It's like something from a Dick Francis novel character.
Charles Burns.
Charles Burns there. People say that, well, why would he risk his neck, for a few quid? Well, the bottom line is you've got to look at the other way. Depending on who's behind it, it might be more injurious to his health if he hadn't have fucking jumped off. It might have broken his neck anyway. You fall off or will break your fucking neck. So, it's easy for people to say, why would you fall off? Listen, if you're going to fall off, you want to be falling off perhaps at that kind of speed over hurdles and on nice ground, etc. I wouldn't want to fall off a horse but he looked to be, it looked to be a soft fall a soft unseat. So I don't think, I don't know if he had any injuries afterwards. I don't think so.
He was skilled enough basically to land on his feet.
Yeah, he checked the screen. He checked the screen and all, didn't he?
He did. He took a glance at the screen.
Yeah, fuck me, I'm going too well here. Your man will break your fucking neck there if you don't fall off there, you little cunt. That would have been the text message. You're falling off, you little cunt. Your man's had 50 large and fat sores. Fucking fall off. There you go, you see.
That's another 40 notes.
I break me neck there, Dad. Fuck you, little cunt. file off, yeah. And I'll break your fucking neck. Yes, apologies to the Burns family. I'm sure he said that's not us, you know.
Some listeners' points of view on this. Bill Carson says, we haven't heard the usual blather from ex-jockeys that no one jumps off horses at 30 miles an hour. I mentioned after it happened that the late, great Yakima Canute would have been proud of that dismount. He's the guy that taught John Wayne to fall off a horse. There you go. You were thinking it's Super Dave Osborne or something like that, John.
Yes.
Dan's been on and he said Mick Fitz and George Baker have disgraced themselves over the pat given to the Burns jumping off. Oh, and they are both jockey coaches.
You won't find that in the syllabus, or maybe you will. I don't.
Grumpy Punter's been on. He's probably backed it. He says, having watched the scout camera from behind on racing TV, the horse does go to jump the hurdle at a steep angle, and the jockey's arse does slide back to the horse's rear with the feet coming out the stirrups as a result. Hence, when landing, the jockey was unbalanced. Again, that's another mitigation. He says people have different opinions, but that's what it's all about. And I would say if this had been, say, a yard that, let's say you didn't have the drift, Chris, and you did, and it wasn't Charles Burns.
Yes,
people would just be calling that as a soft unseat, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you would. You'd be much more forgiving. But it's like, everything is about context and and the circumstances. But it's always follow the money. Somebody benefited from that. That's it. Somebody benefited. When people say with other horses, oh well, yeah, he got boxed in at a crucial time, but it drifted from evens to sort of go and fuck yourself. So somebody knew that was going to happen. And either they're blessed with the foresight of fucking Doris Stokes, or guess what? There's something more to it. But we don't know. We'll find out in the full.
One of the things I always say, especially if you're younger listeners, we haven't got many kids to the greyhound. Do you have any younger listeners this week? The way that I like to look at life and things is, if you look at the commodities market on the stock market, oil, gas, gold, everything, usually it's a good predictor as to what's going to happen because things get bought and sold. If you see sharp rises in things, you're usually going to get an announcement on something. Like you say, like Chris says, follow the money. And that should be your attitude to life. Follow the money. It works. Next subject, we're going to come on to industry SPs. And Cairnbet, who writes a great blog on course. I love, to be honest, I've got a lot of time for on-course bookmakers. I'd like to do it, but it's a lot of hard work. I mean, you watch them troll the equipment in the trucks, set the joints up. Then they've got a man in there all day. Now we've got 8 and 9 race cards, so you're not standing there for like 6 times 30 minutes. You're standing there for sometimes 9 times 35 minutes. So it's long days. Then you got to drive home after maybe 6 favs have gone in. It's not an easy job. And he posted yesterday on the disgraceful industry SP of Mum's Tipple that went off industry SP of 7-2. And he commented on this and he showed his book. And he said, I don't usually do this because obviously it's private on the race for Mum's Tipple. And what that revealed was the last bet struck with Cairnbet was 9-2. That was his last price. And he said on the off, and you have to take him at his word because I wasn't there, but I put it out to 5-1. A lot. He says he didn't see hardly anyone at 7-2 in the ring. It was mostly 4s and 9-2. So how on earth have they been allowed to get away with 7-2? They're ignoring the on-course market clearly, and they're just making their own numbers up, Chris.
100%, yeah. That's as bad as you'll see, I think. I speak from bitter experience. I backed it at SP because I missed the early little bit flurry of money. I said, oh well, on the exchange it was showing 5-6 to 1. I thought, wow, it'd be about that in the shop, so I'll leave it at SP. And when it settled, I thought, how much? 7-2. I don't want to fuck it having a joke. So I looked at the Betfair SP and I couldn't believe it. So I cannot see how they arrived at that number. But yeah, punters have been had over, haven't they?
John, it's right, isn't it? Punters now are being shafted. And as well, what's happening is the online market having a bad effect on the SPs that punters are actually getting, especially in big fields, when you get daft each way terms like 5, 6, 7 places. So what they're doing is they're shortening the win odds, which is they're just ridiculous because punters always back each way in big fields. And the damage then is less for the place part anyway. So even though they're getting lots of places, it's no good because the win odds are so poor. You're probably giving them 30 or 40% overround on a race.
Well, what I'll say is that punters should keep an eye on the BHA and see how long it takes them to speak out on this absolute scandal, because I'll tell you now, they will not, because this is entirely what the BHA want and support with their insidious gross profits tax. Yet another stinking black mark for our regulator.
It's interesting you say that, because bookmakers, the big operators, have reported that whilst turnover's gone down significantly on British racing, profits are actually up.
That's doable though, because when turnover goes down like this, it explains the fact that people aren't playing winnings up. They're losing and fucking off.
I believe they've trimmed the bush. I think they've got rid of winners.
Oh, they've done that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're left with a load of losers like what they're getting the fail down to, then you're going to have this situation where turnover drops appreciably and there are wagons they're doing it in, but they're fucking off. They're not getting a bit more and trying to win it back. They're just doing it and away.
It's a real problem. But why are we not going back to one course again for industry SPs? Obviously, we know back in the day that Ladbrokes.
We're not doing it, right? Because nobody's speaking up for the punters and nobody with any authority to do anything. You know, I mean, the BHA should be all over this. The followers of the sport are getting it rammed up their asses sideways with no lube.
Make a video about it, though. That's what I like to do. Make a
Well,
video.
you know,
Bouncy castles, ice cream.
This is a situation where you take a sport and you let it get led by the nose down by people who are betting on it. And this is where it gets you, because all you want is the followers of that sport getting done.
I've actually said this many a time. They cannot fund a pastime or a sport on saying that you've got to lose. You have to sell the dream, else no one's going to come into the game. Right, yes, you're going to get your Saturday crowds, and all they want to see the bands and they have the champagne, dress up and things like that. Yeah, I get all that. That's the marketing campaigns you're seeing right now on billboards where they're showing people having a good time, having a glass of champagne.
Do you remember Matt Corton, the originator of Priceways?
Yeah.
He brought that book out, and
Brilliant
it said,
book.
if everybody in the country improved the betting by 5%, the bookies were fucked.
Yes, did.
Now, God forbid that happens.
Actually, you've nailed it, right? That is what's happened. So since the dawn of internet and the increasing level of information available to a punter, right, that's willing to pay and do the hard work and the yards, they ain't going to beat you. And so what they do to beat you is they just stop you from betting. And that's it. And all they're interested, if you notice their adverts, the three guys round a pool table, I stick my deposit on limit every month, £20 a month. I'm all set to go. That's me done, innit? Cash Out King at terrible odds, which is again in the bookies' favour. Bet builders are in the bookies' favour. Why people do bet builders, I have no idea, because you're betting to probably 30 to 40% loss on investment on many of them. So I've no idea. But I do, because this is the education that they're wanting. £10 people, £20 people en masse, idiots, wagons. That's what they want. That's what they need. And this is why you're seeing now the likes of Star Sports, sponsored Ground Derby. They do plenty of good in the game. I'm not going to slag them off, but because at the end of the day, they're putting money in, but they're using influencers. They're not using it to educate people. They're doing it to encourage wagon behaviour, etc., etc. It's all.
But the problem is as we've said before, that's all well and good, and you know, if you're a bookmaker, you can understand that way of attracting punters. But it's a Ponzi scheme in the sense that eventually you will run out of £10 punters. You know, people. You know, there are only so many young people or wagons that are prepared to play to that level, and it's fine as long as you can attract an unyielding supply of new people. And eventually, you know, you're going to end up with nobody left to play, because what they're not doing is looking after the people that actually fund the sport day in, day out. You know, and it's cool as long as you've got an end of supply of new people, but you're not going to have that. You just will not have that. So it's a very short-sighted policy, I think.
Totally agree. No one's got that long-term vision, have they, for the sport?
No, it's grab it and run. Let's have some dough today. And I get that. I totally understand it, but it's all money today. It's like fucking, you know, Jimmy Conway when he grabs Murray round the neck. Money today, money today. and the wig falls off. Remember that in Goodfellas?
Yeah. I get the BHA for this, though, in a way, because they're just concerned at funding racing for the next year. That's all they've been looking at for the past God knows how many years. Like
Correct.
John says, they're on a bad deal, so they're petrified at not being able to fund the current levels of prize money, never mind increasing it.
Yeah, but they're looking to extend this deal, though. There's nobody in the BHA speaking out against this deal.
I've got issues with how the game is run, as you know, and this comes on to the next subject, which is the Gambling Commission. Now, this sport, this is a message to anyone listening, whether it's MPs, trainers, anyone at the BHA listening. If you do not take the Gambling Commission out and get rid of the current board and have a new, fresh perspective, I will guarantee racing's demise will be on rapid speed in decline. The BHA's last answer was that they wouldn't take on the Gambling Commission as they were another regulator and they had no business sort of taking them on or anything like that. But I question this because the Gambling Commission's latest, shall we say, escapade or idea to placate government and placate people and gamblers is, I know what we need to do. We need to introduce a system where we talk to consumers more. That will please the DCMS. That will please a lot of people going forwards because we're now dealing with gamblers. We're going to talk to gamblers. Yeah. That's what they'll probably tell the DCMS. That's probably what they've told the ever asking the questions. Under the new framework, the Consumer Voice Programme will now be supported by Yonder Consulting, the Behavioural Insights Team, Humankind Research.
This is us. So we should have got that gig, honestly.
Bearing in mind that the lived experience panel on the Gambling Commission is solely of people that have suffered from gambling harm. And the four sort of bodies, they signed them on a 2-year contract.
Do we know how much it's cost? We don't.
No figures. I'll guarantee it's not going to, any racing punter is not going to get asked their opinion.
No.
One. They're going to frame more statistics to basically strangle the gambling product. On the back of this, if racing does not campaign for the restructure and reform of the Gambling Commission, I promise 100%, this game is gone in double quick time. Because these people are not interested in British racing's survival or prosperity. And I urge the BHA to listen to this. And instead of saying we don't challenge other regulators, you don't have to challenge them directly, but you can make statements and you can go to government and tell them of your concerns of what this is going to do. This is going to affect racing badly. But yet they've disguised it under the we're going to talk to consumers to appease the DCMS, who've probably gone to them and said, you need to be talking to gamblers. Yet they've employed 4 sort of consulting agencies with probably reputable career waffle bag research, but it's no good to punters. None. Zero. This is just absolutely bent. And I'm sorry, but I've got to speak out about it because it's so frustrating. And it's frustrating that no one talks about it. We're all fucked if this carries on. John.
Action is needed, but the track record of those that's in charge would suggest action will not be forthcoming.
No.
As you know, I mean, you sat down with these people in meetings and things like that, and I think you have a lot more faith in them than I do. I honestly do not think that there's the will there to actually challenge the situation. I think that if the solution presented itself, dressed up in its Sunday best and paid for the petrol and all the rest of it, then the BHA would happily rock along with it. But there is nobody at High Holborn who will dig this out, and that's what's required.
They talk very well, like in the meeting. I've said this.
So you'd hope so, though, wouldn't you? You would hope so. You'd hope they'd be very good on their feet.
Like you say, I've yet to see action. But then again, that brings us on to our next topic, which John pointed out on his questions thread. Lord Allen, can he be arsed with it? To kick us off, John. So this is the incoming future chair of the BHA, Tom Livermore, who's quite hilarious. Said, Lord Allen and Ray Charles, cracking ventriloquist act.
Got the gear.
I would suggest whoever's got their hand up Lord Allen's ass working the controls to get the finger out and get him behind his desk pretty quick. But I don't think it's going to happen.
No, in all seriousness, do you?
I think he's had a look and thought, shit, sure, no thanks.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was going to say to you. Is that the case? He's seen the mess and he's thought, oh, geez, how do we sort this?
what's that going to do for my CV? You know, he knows he's not gonna be able to sort that out. So you think, fuck it, why do I want to take this job when I can do another one for the same day?
Julie Harrington couldn't have left a bigger mess at the BHA if she
No,
had
she's
15
incompetent,
curries
totally
and took a
incompetent.
dump on the desk.
Yeah, she's incompetent. She was incompetent.
I wouldn't say incompetent. She just didn't do anything.
Well, that okay. Whatever your definition, whether by commission or omission, her legacy is one of utter abject failure.
No, you're right.
She's like Steve McLaren, isn't she? Sort of hopped from job to job, leaving a trail of disaster in her wake.
Yeah, it's kind of worrying this. And again, there's more worrying things for racing. Sorry to be all a bit negative. We are going to get funnier. We'll move on from that topic. We'll go to employees taken advantage of. And this actually refers to a case in Ireland where Thomas Mullins was fined over €86,000 to stable staff member. And obviously that, he's appealed that, but I don't know if he's failed it or not. But
what was he convicted? Well, not convicted. No. What was he found not to have done? What did he do?
Bullying and harassment.
All right.
Obviously, he was paying so much wages in cash, so much by check, things like
Sure.
that. Just reading between the lines, that it looks to me that this sort of stable staff member may have been exploited. Immigrants that come across and work, get the visas or whatever. Do you think they're mistreated, Chris, or some maybe?
I don't think it's specific to immigrants. I think working people in those kind of industries are routinely mistreated. I really do believe that, and I think there's a culture, particularly in racing, of keeping your mouth shut. Okay, I think that's encouraged, and you can see it with the punditry. So everything in racing is great, and I don't think it's specific to any group of people. I think it's just working people in industries who are paid close to or at minimum wage are fair game. And I don't think it's just racing, but I think obviously the subject of this podcast is racing, but I think it's everywhere. And I do think a lot of yards are, not all, but a lot of yards are run like sort of run by feudal lords. The gaffer's the gaffer, and everyone does exactly what they say when it's required. And I think it's probably the tip of the iceberg. But people aren't encouraged to speak up. Why would they? There's no unionisation of stable staff, is there anymore? So keep your mouth shut and your head down, and it'll get better. Only it doesn't.
John?
I don't agree anymore with what Chris has said there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Very little to add to that.
Obviously, it's something that again, another issue for racing, really, to make sure that employees get a fair crack of the whip, really. It's not an easy industry to work in, as we know, because obviously you have to work like so many weekends a month, little downtime. There are plus points to the job.
Yeah, all that inside info as well,
I was more referring to the fresh air, the sunshine of the Newmarket Heath.
No, not knowing when people are going to fall off. That'd be worth doing it for fucking 12 quid an hour, wouldn't it? Yeah, but yeah. Listen, and they trade on the fact that a lot of people in racing, love horses, right? So they figure that okay, the conditions are shitty, but actually I love being around horses. Yeah, my boss is a bit of a knob, but I'm prepared to sort of suck it up because I get to do what I love every day. But the bottom line, that does not excuse employers for treating people badly simply because they're in a profession they quote love. No excuse at all.
Now, onto sort of better topics now before your questions. Bring a bottle. Yes, I'm all for that.
Well, I'm going to say, you're bringing a bottle. Yes. It's a fucking Jeroboam, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, a tanker.
Me and the producer had a discussion on this, and we worked it out royally here. We want York to do it. Haydock yesterday, for the punters that came in the first hour, you were allowed to bring your own bottle in.
Ooh.
Right? If York do it, John, this was my scenario. Me, you, and the producer triple-handed. We had Jeroboam each as we walked through.
We'd need as the shopping trolley or something to get it all in.
Yeah, probably give one to Blucky as well.
Oh yeah.
So that we've got 4 Jeroboams to get us through the day.
Well, so, it's a good start, isn't it?
No concession for Piccalilli sandwiches though, so Adam Normal will still have to put them in his shoes, wouldn't he?
But this is the interesting thing. I like the initiative. I think
Mhm.
this is where racing needs to appear, because racing is a fantastic day out. It's a
Yes.
social day out. When the weather's nice, there's nothing finer than
No.
going racing and enjoying the day, getting the fresh air, seeing the horses in the paddock. And if you're allowed to bring your own, like Adam Norman says, for years, he's stuffing his
Socks with piccalilli. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Adam Norman often comes in well endowed when he goes to Doncaster.
Yeah, he's got comes in wellies, doesn't he? All up filled up with pickle and fucking tomatoes and all sorts.
John, you've got to agree with this. This is a real good thing, isn't it? That race courses could really get some plus points.
I don't think there's a downside to it, really. I mean, they'll talk about, oh, people getting pissed, they might as well be paying for it. Nah, bollocks, get them in, get them interested, and deal with any backwash later, I mean,
You're good at cricket. If I book at Ashes Test match,
you're taking a cooler box in, aren't you, with all your drinks in, your sarnies and pork pies.
you don't have to go to their outlets and buy whatever.
No.
You can bring your own. That's what attracts people to sport, because
Yes.
you enjoy the sport and it's a cheaper day out for you. And that's what people want right now. At this moment in time, and well done to the guy that's just moved from Bath to Haydock. I forget his name. I'd love to quote him. He put that initiative in. It was well done. People actually turned up. I saw them with a bottle sat in the stands, pouring a glass of wine, a champagne.
And there was only 3 deaths, weren't there? Only 3 alcohol-related deaths on that. So it's actually a tremendous result. Yeah.
Something
done.
of a red letter day for the sport, really, with Haydock getting something right, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, true.
You can tell fucking Kirkland Tellerate's pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the Clark at Haydock looked to have created another bias with the stand side at Haydock on Saturday, playing out big time. Same at Lingfield on Saturday night, but it just is what it is. The bias has come.
We love a track bias.
I would say punters should love it, unless you bet it at 9 a.m. If you watch the first and watch the first 3-0 on this,
you know where the stinkers are, don't you? I mean, Lingfield's going to be bad. Redger's going to be bad. I mean, if you're betting early there, Redkey and early because it's embossed, isn't it?
One for Johnny here to start us off. Imperial Commander Bin Saro being in the paper saying Tornado Alert was only 85% fit for Newmarket. Would that be John's view?
No. Didn't give a shit. Trainers always talked down how fit they've got them. Honest to God, if you sent one for a classic and it was 85% fit, you're talking furlong pole when they're pulling up.
So at 85%, when I've owned horses and I've been told my horse is 85% for reappearance, they usually blow up about 2 out and you get beat about 10. Is that Dusty Bin's way of training, John? I don't think so.
He wouldn't have a track record for giving them pipe openers to that extent anyway. And I just don't buy it. Gosden's another one for it, I mean, he's only this. It's all absolute codswallop. They don't run them unless they're fitting classics.
What I would say is that, like, Bin Saro's everyone's friend at Ascot at Royal Ascot, especially in handicap.
Usually after 600 days off, so draw your own conclusions about the fucking 85% fit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, Royal Ascot, Dusty Bin. Right, next question. Keith Watson, Sunday question. Racing does not help itself. Yesterday, all the Premier meetings were in the north, similar catchment area. Other days, same time meetings are really close to each other, just nonsensical. Keith, I agree. Obviously, the EU laws, the basic competition laws, having Haydock, Chester on the same day is a bit ridiculous. York as well in the north. I know what you're saying. Nothing we can do about it, really. It's just tracks bid for it. The BHA are powerless. They have no power over or control over where that fixture goes to, as long as the winning bidder is successful for that particular fixture. So that's summed up. Darren Pearce has come on to one of John's points about Claire Hart, where John says, Claire Hart's on Dido Harding. What's wrong with our press? Darren Pearce says, yes, the Claire Hart piece was disgraceful when she should have been writing about Stratford. Rap's been on Claire Hart on Dido Harding. There's a challenging wank.
Well, I was thinking when you said Claire Hart on Dido Harding, I thought it was some sort of fucking Leslie porno film, like Scissors Sisters.
No, it was the point-to-point correspondence in the Post did a piece on Dido Harding. Now, for me, there's a lot of pertinent questions to be asked as to why Dido Harding is suddenly in a prominent position in this sport, given a, shall we say, somewhat checkered CV.
Yes, like
Not
chef's
what,
trousers.
not one of those pertinent questions was asked. I mean, we get things like the cute rocking horse in the hallway that
Oh
resembles
yes,
Soul Dawn.
yes,
And,
handmade, of course.
what
Yeah,
kind of bollocks is this in our
yes.
press?
Well, it's
They
it's
should
puff
be
piece
asking
client
her
journalism.
what she's bringing to the table, what action she's going to do, and how improved she's going to be from a time with EE and a time with bollocksing up the test and trace.
Yeah.
Correct. Amen to all that. They're sketch writers, aren't they? They're not journalists. They're kind of client journalists. They're sketch writers. They're kind of superannuated bloggers. But there isn't a journalist around, I don't think. Very, very few. Very few.
Ariation Westgate. I've seen others ask this question, but not heard you discuss it. Forgive me if you have. But how come affordability checks apply only online and not in person at your local betting shop? That's actually not true.
No, not true.
The betting shops now have an affordability check thing where usually they apply it to strangers, from what I've seen. The shop regulars that come in, they get on fine. But the ones that walk in and you've not seen before and they want 200 quid at Wexford
On a Gordon
on
Elliott horse in a
on a
claimer,
Wednesday, you will get
Yeah.
affordability check. Have you got your license on you, sir?
Well, do you know, I was speaking to a shop manager only last week and I said, what's the deal with affordability? And she said, we've all been on the course. I said, have you applied it? She said, yes, we have. How's it gone? She said, basically, we're not paid enough. We've bottled it every time because when the punter kicks off and threatens to drag them over the counter, it's like, okay, no problems, mate. We'll deal with it at another time. She said, we have not come across a scenario where it hasn't resulted in a massive row. So she said, look, I ain't paid enough to be, challenging people for that. So let it go. They are doing it.
You see, Chris, this is like really great content because these are real life experiences.
Yep.
Not just punters, but staff.
Yeah.
And the problems this arises.
She said, look, listen, the bottom line, she said, that the kind of confrontations you expect, this requires specialist training. It requires, people to be remunerated at an appropriate level. She says, I ain't paid enough. She said, this is a job. I've got kids to feed. I'm not going to be rucking and roaring about someone who hasn't brought a birth certificate or a share certificate in just to have a bet. She said, not worth it. She said, frankly, who on earth would want to sort of, dig their heels and say, no, sir, I'm not going to take your bet until you come back with your share certificate. Fuck it, let it ride. But she said, it is happening. We are under pressure to do it. She said, but every single encounter with our clients has resulted in a massive row. And she said, I felt threatened and I don't want to do it. Fair play to her. I wouldn't do it.
I mean, this is why when I come back to the Gambling Commission again, I don't want to sound like a boring record, but this is where when you get an imbalanced board of people for discussion and it's just all one side, how on earth can you regulate?
They're detached from the hell on earth that they're creating.
Correct, John. You've nailed it, because policy is made by people who never have to do the job they're asking others to do. And on paper, it looks phenomenal. Yes, we'll get our staff to challenge customers and in return the customer will provide. On paper, that looks phenomenal. But none of those people that draft that policy would be prepared to or able to stand in a betting shop in a town centre where you've got 4 FOBTs where people are kicking shit out of it because they haven't won. You're asking someone who's desperate to get a bet on, trying to get someone on time. And in the meantime, you're trying to explain to someone why they have to bring in a share certificate for 11, 12 quid an hour. No, thanks. But the people that write the policy don't see that. That doesn't happen in the real world. They'll move on.
Because in their heads, everybody complies.
Correct.
Great content, this, guys. This should be discussed on a political scale, on a regulator scale, an industry scale, and we all have to ask why it isn't. That's all we do as a podcast. Why isn't it discussed? It should be on a broader level.
Lately, from gross profits tax through affordability checks, so the whole governance of the sport is a national scandal.
It's why it's going downhill, mate, and we know it is. And that's it. We're trying to stop it, and we're trying to prevent that. But, God, I don't like our odds, I'll be honest.
Well, you've got your finger in the dike at any rate, haven't you?
Yeah, but it's still going to be some task. I really believe that.
Well, at least enjoy a new finger in the day.
There was John hinted here that like 500 episodes in, yes, in July, I believe, sort of mid-July time, we come to our 500th show. So John's put time to stop. Everyone's going, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
I
fine,
know
yeah.
somebody put, yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, fair opinion. You've had enough of us now. What I would say is we're about a 5-to-1 chance to reach 1,000. Probably because some of us will die by then.
Yes.
Because we actually do less shows in terms of we don't do the Friday show anymore.
No.
So it'll be harder to get up free public shows, if you like. We've done more than 500, but not in the free public domain is how we count it. We appreciate some of your comments, as in you like us, that call it as it is. But in all seriousness, it depends on what game's left to fight for. Like we do this from passion and fun. And
Yes.
if all of a sudden that passion and fun's erased because unfortunately there's no hope for the game, let's say I can't bet anymore, then what's the point of me doing podcasts?
Yeah.
Like I've got to do something else in my life.
We'll do the Heaven's Gate. Remember that cult in California that all off themselves. They neutered themselves with penknives, and then they recorded a message that Jesus was coming in a spaceship to take them all to Alpha Centauri. That's what we
Oh, we
should
can
do.
do something like that, yeah.
Yeah, a valedictory. Yeah. Marshall Applewhite, Heaven's Gate. Go on YouTube, and there's his video. He's saying he's going to the higher realm, and they all off themselves.
I like the sound of that.
It does sound a lot of fun, doesn't it? Get a pair of nice Nike trainers out of it, at least for a couple of hours anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of thousand listeners with us as well. I mean,
yeah, well, I think so. But what we want donations, because he wanted donations beforehand. So if you want us to see us, to offer, so start making donations. Patreon, GoFundMe, and we'll do it. There you go.
Yeah, we want a good fortnight before we offer ourselves.
Oh, yeah, fucking hell. We want to get on it. Yeah, so, if you want to see that happen, pay for it.
You know, like when series go on too long or whatever.
Yes,
you know, like you watch a brilliant, like Boardwalk Empire was.
Oh yeah,
like one of my favorite, and then it lost its way a bit. I think about what were it, season 5, 6, or something.
Yeah,
finished off quite strong, but did lose its way. And I think that's the kind of thing. If you're getting the same thing week in, week out, people then just get, they're just going about the same fucking thing again. Bert Doncaster sort of emphasises that because I can tell in his tone, and I love Bert. But he said, would be a shame if you stopped. Maybe a different guest every week, like Catherine was last week, with some variety, which we did. That's the thing. We do strive for good content, and we do want to provide what you want us to provide. That's why we ask questions for the questions thread, because that's how we shape the show as well. Bert's question for tonight's show, the real question, was, where's the best place you've ever hidden?
In plain sight.
Hidden in plain sight, yeah.
What the fuck?
I know he's thinking we're like drug dealers and
like fucking porkies looking through the fucking plug hole at the women's shower.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in my younger days if I did ever have to hide anywhere. No, I've never had to do it. I'd want to. I get excited by shit like this. Adrenaline, isn't it? If you have to hide from someone that's after you, wants to beat you up, and it's like, and you can see him. And he's walking around like a fucking madman. He's like, he's going to kill you.
Animal snarling.
And you can see him, but he can't see you. I'd get a kick out of that.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay, fair play.
Adrenaline, that's what we live for.
Excitement.
Well, I can't jump out of planes because I don't like heights.
Don't have no plane, Hannibal. Yeah, quite right.
No plane.
Yeah, Hannibal. Yeah.
John, you anything where you've had to hide from anyone, or?
I don't think I've ever hidden from anyone. To be honest,
no.
I can't think of any.
You've probably had some shit yourself moments. I don't think, from what you've told me, it passed, but I don't think. Shame.
We've lived very dull lives. Yeah, good question, but we're the wrong people for that.
Yeah. Ronnie Omelette says, what made you furious as a child?
Well, I can tell you this, and it's seared in my memory. In 1976, my mother was talked into by me to cash in all her Green Shield stamps, right, which she'd been collecting for like 18 months, to go to the Green Shield stamp shop, which was kind of a precursor to Argos, to buy me a Weeble Circus. And when we arrived at Richmond-on-Thames, they didn't have it. Now, and I responded by throwing, apparently, I don't recall it, the biggest fucking epi you've ever had, rolling around on the floor, screaming, tears, and it took my mother, my aunt, and 2 security staff, one arm each, to carry me out the shop, screaming retribution against Green Shield stamps, the Weebles, screaming at other customers, etc. And apparently, she said, but a week before she died, it was the most embarrassing moment of her life, and my heart swelled with pride because I was such a cunt. And I still want a Weeble circus, but they're about 200 quid on eBay. Never got it. Never got
That's it, listeners. Send Invictalis
Weeble circus. I want it. I
a
still fucking want
Weeble
it.
circus.
A Weeble.
You'll
They
make you
wobble, but
happy.
they don't fall down. I
Yeah.
will. Yeah, I'd like that a lot. Yeah.
John, what made you furious?
One Christmas, I wanted this game. It was called Striker. It was a bit like Subbuteo.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I had one.
a nastier, cheaper version, and you could press the player's head and he'd kick the ball.
He did.
I'd waited for it and been on to the parents for months. Christmas. I want Striker. I want a Striker game. Must have a Striker game. Striker game. Everybody's got a Striker game. I want a Striker game.
Yeah.
Always. And Christmas morning, I came down the stairs and there was an envelope on the mantelpiece addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. So I opened it up, and lo and behold, it was a letter from Santa
Oh.
saying he wasn't able to get hold of a Striker game for me, but there was a quid towards one.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I might be able to try and get one myself in the sales.
Ooh,
And I
that's
threw an
brilliant.
absolute fucking wobbler on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. Knicker towards. How much were they? About £5, I think, weren't they? I remember that.
Yeah,
game.
it was a
Yeah,
short,
yeah, well-
short measure anyway,
Yeah.
you know. I mean,
Yeah.
nowhere
Yeah.
fucking there. But yeah,
Oh, gosh.
he's a quid. Shut the fuck up. Hard
Like,
times.
I
Tin
think-
bath in the yard, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, I'm going to ask another question.
Go on.
Were you smacked as a little one? I was smacked.
Were you? No, I wasn't, and that's why I'm such a cunt. You see, I think I would have benefited from corporal punishment. I really would. I should have been, but I was a horrible child. I was like, I don't know whether any listeners are familiar, still read it, Viz comic, right? There's a character called Spoilt Bastard in it, who's this sort of overweight 6-year-old child who exploits his poor mother called Sissy. And there's a cracking little comic strip where she's in bed dreaming, and she's dreaming that she's Snow White in her dream, and all her her child Timmy, his name Timmy Timpson, is helping her do the housework and then making her dinner, and she's having a wonderful dream. And the final frame it's top left, it says 4 a.m. It's him bellowing in her ear saying, "It's 4 a.m. woman, I've wet the bed, and what are you going to do about it, you sack of old dog shit?" And that was me as a child, Timmy Timpson, spoilt bastard. I've never changed.
John, did you ever get thrashed as a child?
Smashed.
All of
right
that.
hook, left hook, hit with
Good.
ladles.
They didn't fuck about it north, did they?
Ladles,
No.
pans. I got it with every item in the kitchen. Right, honestly.
Jesus.
Whatever Jane could lay her hands on, she'd swipe me with.
My worst fear as a kid, where you either spilt your drink on floor, on carpet, or you broke an ornament or something. Like, because as a kid, you charge him around like a lunatic.
Yeah.
I used to get my legs smacked for that proper.
Yeah.
Well, it's a mistake, isn't it? I've not done it. I've not just deliberately done that. But imagine now, you'd view that as cruelty, wouldn't you?
You wouldn't. I could never conceive doing that to my own children. I mean, I've never laid a glove on them.
No.
When I look back at my own parents, my dad used to scream at me for stuff, and I thought, "What the fuck are you shouting at?"
Shoot
Shoot
me over the head with a grater once, and I had a perfect square of red dots on the head.
You see how we laugh? Can you imagine the people of today, like the youngsters and stuff? Oh, they'd be in shock. What?
Yeah,
you have the head with a grater.
Old Bill will be round. Yeah, old police will be round.
It's like back then, no one give a shit, really. Great question, Ronnie.
Yeah.
And the question to finish the show is from Ice Cold Cube. Hot Lips Houlihan from MASH has died. Who didn't have a crush on her? Question mark.
We're not that old.
Well,
MASH ended in 1983.
Yeah,
that was the last episode. So no, we were not old enough to have a hard on.
Particularly fancy, no.
But he said, which of the TV stars from the 70s, 80s did loyal listeners, Chris, John, Joe, Lee Flees, of course, that was my young nickname.
That's fucking you. That's a beast.
I've
yeah.
unhealthy feelings for when they were
Very healthy.
younger.
Mm.
Ice Cold Cube like Hot Lips Hooligan. So mine was back in the 80s. It was my favourite show ever. It still is today. It was Wiedersehen Pet. I've watched it over and over again. I've even been to fan conferences and fan.
Have you?
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm mad on it. And it's Leslie St. John. She played Vicky in Wiedersehen Pet. She was like, I was about 12, 13 at the time. Yeah.
You're in a permanent state of tumescence, were you?
Yeah.
Yes, quite.
She was the one. Leslie St. John. So that'd be mine.
3 just off the cuff.
Just off the wrist, I think.
They can reel them off.
Yeah, fucking right, yeah.
No problem. I mean, I remember having a knuckle shuffle at all of these.
Yeah.
Lisa Goddard in Bergerac.
Yeah.
Ooh, blimey. Okay.
Sandra Dickinson in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the Buono adverts.
Yes, gosh.
And Eunice Stubbs in Give Us a Clue.
Eunice Stubbs? Fucking hell.
I was all over them today.
Do you remember the theme tune to that? Give us a clue.
Exactly.
With Michael Parkinson.
Yeah,
and Lisa Goddard.
God, yeah, God, give us a clue. Yeah, that was Lionel Blair.
Lionel Blair, wasn't it?
Yeah. I even got a Lionel Blair haircut in the hope of meeting you one day.
Yeah, fucking booth font. Yeah, like Danny LaRue. Yeah.
Chris, any crushes from your teenage years?
Well, it's just crushingly obvious. I think Daisy Duke. Remember Dukes of Hazzard?
Oh, yes. Marvellous shorts.
Yeah, tremendous.
Boss Hogg was slobbering, weren't he, over her?
He wasn't the only one. Yeah, you used to have your tea on the tray, and you used to have put the tray on my lap there because when Daisy Duke comes on, Yeah, fucking right, dude. Battenberg everywhere. Yeah, and I used to like Jacqueline Smith, who played what was her name? Kelly Garrett in the original Charlie's Angels. You know, the black-haired one. I thought she was wood-inducing. And the most obvious one of all is Linda Carter, Wonder Woman, she still looks fantastic now. You have a look at her.
Actually, yeah. So these are really good shouts.
Yeah, 86 and you'd still do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You'd still rattle her fucking
even Bob Ogden might be interested if he was still here.
Yeah. You would, if afforded the opportunity.
We hope you've all enjoyed that like we have. We've covered plenty of topics and your talking points. Please support us on Patreon, of course, and join the band, the Merry Band. You do it from £9 plus VAT a month. And if you want more and you want early bird. And
we had a winner today. A winner.
Road to Wembley, of all things.
7-1.
Yes.
We've had it off.
We did. We've had it off. So come and join the fun on Patreon. You'll not be disappointed. And if you are, you can cancel at any time. That's fine. Give it a try.
Fuck you.
Yeah. That's all from us. Bye for now.